All right, so yesterday we uh, talked about HTML. Did anyone have any problems with HTML or CSS last night? Um, I mean, a lot of this stuff is just kind of getting to know, getting the feel for it, using the text editor. Uh, you know, just getting used to what colors mean what, so you're able to troubleshoot a little easier, balancing tags, making sure that quotation marks are closed. Um, there's a lot of little minor housekeeping that you just have to do because otherwise things can go wrong. Um, did people look at the CSS website, the W3? Um, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot of stuff that's buried, and there's actually a lot of stuff that's not even in here too. Um, but things, just so you know that they're there. Uh, CSS can get really complex, but for our purposes, this is great. So I guess I'm going to start out today. I told you a little bit about my background, and I'm going to kind of give you an idea of where this has taken me and where you can take your website or whatever you plan on doing with this. Like I said, I started out maybe, I guess it was 10 years ago, almost exactly. I made my first website for my dad. My dad was I just bought a web domain. He's an attorney, and he didn't want to pay for somebody to make a website. He didn't even really need a website, but he wanted something just up, kind of like a business card. So I just kind of, in exchange for him buying me Dreamweaver and Flash, I made this like little website for him, which I made in Photoshop and exported. So these are all images that are just kind of like plopped in there. One of these images, this one, is a link to his email address. So I mean, this is my web skills circa 2001, just an exported image. Not that great. You can't select the text. It hasn't dated well, but I mean, you see, this is what I was doing in 2001. Now, fast forward to more recent times. I've been doing more work in WordPress, and I guess I'll show you. I guess what happened was I had a client come to me, and they said, we need a website. We'd like a website. We don't have any sort of preconception about what it's going to be, or what kind of. We don't care what kind of software you use. We just need it to work on our hosting. We need it to be easy to update and something that is a lot of people will be able to see and not have problems with. So I did a lot of research. I didn't know anything at the time, and that's when I came across WordPress, and I made this website. This was 2 or 3 years ago when I first started. And WordPress, is meant to be kind of as a blog, but I realized that you could easily change it from being just like a blog format to making it more of a regular website. And this is still a little bit, I look at this and cringe a little bit, but you kind of get the idea that this is no longer a blog. That this is more like, has links to pages, and I don't know. They didn't actually fill out a lot of this stuff, but it has staff pages. It has events. So this is my very first WordPress, attempt at WordPress, and since then, most recently I did this website for this nonprofit organization. And tell me if you want me to get rid of these little key commands that are at the bottom, but I'm going to leave them there so you know what I'm pressing. In fact, let me do that. Let me move this. So this is just a nonprofit. You know, they needed a solution for a website pretty quickly. They had a really tight deadline. They needed everything done from start to finish in a week and a half to 2 weeks. So WordPress really allowed me to, you know, build all this functionality in, and they uploaded the content of the website, and while I was simultaneously building it, because WordPress allows me to switch the themes in and out and update them independent of the database, which is really nice, and one of the reasons why I prefer it. So those are kind of like more website-y websites. Now, if we're here for portfolios, I'll show you another. A friend of mine who just graduated, she makes jewelry, and she asked me to help her with a website. So this is WordPress also. So you can see, I have links to pages, but right up front we have her work. And when you click on one of these, there's with what she had, it was most important that we get the work, right up front, that it's, simple, easy to navigate, and it doesn't really take you away from the page. So these are all, this is equivalent. This is a blog post essentially, this little thing, but I'm just calling it into this Lightbox, and we can go into that a little, like, in the next couple days possibly. But it's pretty. This is pretty simple. It's really relatively clean, and the nice thing is that it's just really easy to maintain. Lastly, let me show you my website, my portfolio website, and this is something that I did over the course of a weekend when I, just decided that I really needed a portfolio website because, people were always asking for things, family, friends, what do you do? What kind of architecture do you want to go into? So I kind of made this to show them, well, we don't necessarily always just do architecture, and show, what I have, and possibly, future for employers. So I don't know. This works. These are all posts, but they're displayed on this giant grid that kind of scrolls horizontally. And you click on it. It's also a Lightbox. And so again, I really like this. Never taking you away from the home page. Essentially, you never have to refresh the page. And it's going really slow right now. So this is just kind of an idea. This is WordPress. This is all WordPress, top to bottom, and it just makes it extremely simple. Now, a year from now or 2 years from now, when I come back to this website and I'm, horrified and repulsed that I ever made this or showed this to anybody, it's not WordPress. WordPress makes it not that big of a deal, because, like I said before, I can just write a new theme, apply it, install it, and apply it, and all my content, all of the posts that I've spent hours putting in, writing all the text, uploading images, will still be there, and it'll just be formatted in the new way. So that's my main sort of plug for WordPress. Now, I guess it's a good question. Somebody asked what WordPress is exactly, and WordPress is what's called a CMS, which stands for Content Management System, and there are dozens of these. So if I go to Wikipedia, dozens of content management systems written in all sorts of different languages for the web. Um, and let's see if we have a list. So you can see these tables are all different CMS systems, all that have different sort of niches. A lot of blogs, some are just, keeping track of photos. These ones use Java. These ones use ASP.NET, which is a Microsoft. Perl, PHP. So WordPress is in under PHP. You can see all of these PHP CMSs, and so on and so forth. So WordPress at its core isn't a blogging platform. It's actually just a way to store information, text, images, keep track of them, and be able to call them back later, and turn them into a website. Okay, so also stepping back a little bit, who here, by show of hands, owns a domain name, their own domain name? Okay, so that's like 5 of you or something. Somebody asked me also what a domain name is, and I think a good place to start is the top level domain. So you all probably know what a top level domain is, probably not by that name though. A top level domain is the code after the dot. So .com is a top level domain. .net, .org, .gov, .mil. Let me see if there's a list. These are all. Here's the listing here. This is a bad one because it doesn't say what they are, but these are all domains. So you could buy a .sz domain, and it really depends on who owns the top level domain, whether or not you can buy one. For example, the most common ones that we're familiar with are .com, .org, .edu, but you wouldn't be able to go out and just buy a .edu because only educational institutions can buy them, only schools. .it is, they're country codes, they belong to countries, so .it would be Italy, CN, I believe, is China. There are just so many of them, but some of them you can never buy from, like military, or .mil for military, or .gov for government, and so that's the first kind of introduction into what a top-level domain is. Now, what does this mean for your domain name? A domain name is everything before the dot. So in my case, it's josephbergen.com. And in order to buy a domain, there are, if you Google it, there are probably like a billion places that you can buy them from anywhere from probably free to a ridiculous amount. Probably the most popular places to buy them from, most popular place actually would be GoDaddy.com. Now, GoDaddy, if you go to their website, is stuck in 2000 mode, and it puzzles me why they have somebody endorsing them. So GoDaddy is kind of a standard place. You're going to pay anywhere from like $7 to $10 a year for a domain, for your own custom domain. Now, of course, you can't buy a domain that someone else owns. You have to have a unique one. Also, certain of these companies will only sell certain domain names. So GoDaddy actually sells quite a few. You can scroll through them here. And they probably all have specific pricing. Depending on which one, you'll probably pay more or less. So in my personal experience, I would not suggest GoDaddy. Um, I've had other friends and people that I've known that have had okay experiences. My my gripes with them have been primarily that their customer service is lacking, and their control panel for managing your hosting accounts and domains are extremely confusing, and there are some really basic functions that are just buried so far deep or just masked entirely that it's almost not even. I mean, for me, even me that knows like what I'm doing, like pretty clearly what I want to do, it can be extremely frustrating or impossible. So while GoDaddy is popular, I don't really recommend it. There are a few other ones, uh, but then I'll go into the one that I do recommend in a minute. But uh, you should take a look around at a couple of these. There are as many uh, of these companies as you can count. Um, so there are two different types actually of companies that will sell you a domain, and one is just called a registrar. So GoDaddy is a registrar, and they are authorized to sell you domain names. So I can buy it from GoDaddy, and they essentially lease it to me, usually at year-long intervals. There are a ton of other companies that do that. Also, there are hosts and companies that provide uh, web space, which is basically just the same as hard drive space on a server somewhere. So the amount of storage that you get is the space, um, and then and bandwidth. So that means how much data can you transfer, and that varies from domain to domain from host to host. So it can be something small, or it can be several gigabytes, or it can be unlimited. It really just depends. So if we go, let's just take a look real quick at what we have here. If we look at GoDaddy's hosting, so GoDaddy is both a registrar and a host. So if we look at their just web hosting, we obviously you can buy longer contracts for less per month. Um, and I guess the one that they're saying is the best value. You get 150 gigabytes worth of space, so that's as much, 150 gigabytes of storage. You can create your own email accounts. We won't do that in this class, but just know that if you own a domain, it's really easy to get free email accounts that are, so and so, John Doe at yourwebsite.com. And it's great because Google provides that for free, and it's really easy. It's just like Gmail. Um, they provide you with 5 MySQL databases, which can contain 1 gigabyte, a few other little bonuses. And for 12 months, it's about $7 a month. Now, of course, a lot of hosts and registrars are all about the upsell. So once you buy something, you want to make sure that it has everything you need, because if it doesn't, then they'll try and bump you up for another couple dollars a month to get something really simple like add PHP to your hosting. So just make sure before you go in and actually commit to a host that it can handle your requirements. Now, a lot of hosts, actually, even GoDaddy, has something. Will have like WordPress hosting, and this is probably the exact same as the other ones, the other hosts, the other hosting plans that we just saw, but they're just advertising something. A feature that a lot of hosts have now is that they'll allow you in the control panel. You just log in and you click a button that says install WordPress. It asks you which directory to install it to, and then it'll automatically go through the setting up of the database, getting it all the initial configuration for you. So you won't have to deal with that step for a lot of different hosts, which makes it really nice, because dealing with a database on your own machine through the local server and through the web are 2 entirely different things, and a lot more difficult to troubleshoot on the web. So if you can do a one-click install, an automatic install, I would recommend that. So the host that I use, and I've been for a while, and it's been really good to me, is DreamHost, and you gotta love the stock photo. But one reason why I like them is because every plan has unlimited storage or unlimited bandwidth, which is not easy to come by. It's relatively cheap. It's $8.95 a month for I think a year. It's going to be slightly more than GoDaddy. If you buy, I think I bought like 2 years in advance, and it was $7 a month. So.
Joseph, when they say unlimited storage,
yeah.
there's often like a lot of qualifications.
Yeah.
Do you know what those usually entails?
So in general, when they say unlimited storage, it doesn't mean that you can go ahead and just like back up your computer to your web space. They do have some sort of monitoring system to just make sure that you're not abusing it, but.
But you've never had issues with going over?
No, never. And I have a lot of like just file dumps. I'll put things up and forget them. So, I mean, they make the great thing about DreamHost for me is that their control panel, the back end where you manage your domains, your DNS settings, and so on, is extremely easy to use, easy to navigate, and they explain things really well for you. So for a beginner and a more advanced person, I do recommend it. All right. So does everyone understand the difference between, or everyone understands a registrar and a host? So DreamHost is a registrar and a host. Yeah.
Are we going to use WordPress to host as well?
No, WordPress. Yeah, if you're going to put it on, you'll have to have your own domain name and your own host. Yeah, if you're going to put it online. And I think there may be some ways to get it online for free, but if you're really going to do this seriously, I would start investing in hosting. Okay. So yeah, so I mean, just as a side note, go back to like, these are some of the websites that I've built. This has actually been pretty good to me because over the past 2 summers, I decided not to do an internship or anything, which has been nice because I've been able to, build websites and things from home. And just an example, it's like for the past 2 summers, I've worked 2 or 3 days a week for about a month from home and been able to take the rest of the time off. And that's all I've needed for the entire summer, because you can charge anywhere from $50 to $300 an hour for one of these things, with like a starting fee of about $1,000. So I mean, if you really get to know this type of thing, it can be really, really helpful in a lot of ways. Okay, so let's kind of start bridging the gap between HTML that we talked about yesterday and where we want to go, which is creating, a dynamic website where, this stuff automatically shows up. Let me, I think I might have something ready. No, let's go here. So I'm going to go over here. Can anyone tell me the difference, or can anyone tell me what a static web page is? Has anyone heard that term? Static. Anyone want to take a guess? Just a stab?
Doesn't have any link. Or like doesn't take you to another place.
Doesn't take you into another place. Not exactly. It's kind of close. Doesn't have an update. Doesn't have updates. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's almost there. That's like 90% there. Um, so a static website um, is essentially just what we built yesterday. That HTML file. Let me grab it. Where's tester? I would search for tester, but I probably have a million tester files on my computer. So this is an example of a static website. So you can see that it's all it is this text file. It's in here. Nothing can change unless I actually go in here, edit something, save it, and then open it again. This is how a lot of websites were built in the in the early days. And if you were to build a portfolio website like this, every time you added a project or updated something, you would have to go into the HTML, actually look at this, and if you needed to make a correction, you change it or whatever, save it, and then you're good to go. The problem with that, one of the problems with that is that a week from now, I might come back into this, and if this is more complex, I might have totally forgotten where the little thing that I needed to change actually is buried. Or if one of these breaks, on one of them, I might never see the one page that's broken, and when all the other ones still look correct. Also, if you go to a web page, if I'll just show when I did here group shot. When you go to a web page and you start clicking around, you notice that, even though you're going to new pages and the content changes, a lot of the elements stay the same. So this has, this image back here, which is pretty much always the same size. The image changes, but this text is the same. This little logo's always there. The search box here, the sidebars here, the content in the sidebar changes. This content changes, but the footer always stays the same. So when you're clicking around, a lot of the website is the same. So if you were to build this in HTML, if each one of these were to be their own HTML file, there would be a lot of redundancy in there. You'd be copying and pasting the same thing over and over again for each file. And then say you realize, oh, I don't want this image to be 200 pixels tall. I need it to be 250 pixels tall, something that's pretty trivial. You'd have to go into every single one of these, and there are dozens of pages in here. You have to go into dozens of files, go down, find that little thing that you needed to change, and change it, save it, do that, just repeat the process. So it's really inefficient, and a lot of errors. It's very error prone. So so we learned what a static website is, or the web page is, and what we're going to do is move from that to start building dynamic web pages. And a dynamic web page, does anyone want to take a guess at that now that we're more familiar with a static? So a dynamic web page is basically something that instead of just being written as a straight HTML document, what it does is it goes and gets content from a database, and it brings that content back and fills out a pre-formatted form. So it's kind of like a Mad Lib. So you can imagine this website as having all these little slots, and whenever I refresh the page, it goes back to the web page. It goes back to the database and says, okay, I have this form. I'm looking for whatever should be in this slot. The database gives it back to me and says, okay, this is what you should show here. This is the text. This is the title, and fill it in where you need to. So that the dynamic web page allows you to build essentially just a template, like I've shown you, given you, and easily make a lot of web pages from only one file. So I'm going to pause this. Did I even start it? There's usually a button up here. This will be great for when you're reviewing the video later.